Ready to go.
Holiness family, greetings to everybody that's on the line and all of those that have been so amply blessed in this season to have a realm of consciousness that has provided for them to look within themselves as opposed to looking external for solutions. And that's how I'm going to present to you this evening, this morning for you all, evening for me. We're in these different time zones. We had done something called our predicament was not, is not caused by our history. And of course, a little difficult to understand if you still struggling with this dualistic way of viewing things. And it's going to keep you at odds with yourself and many times at odds with others. But I want to make sure that before we get into the framework, the prophetic framework that Eitai has laid out for us, I want to express unto you, that we continue to see daily confirmations as to what is occurring on an energetic realm. And I'm very cautious about using this word spiritual realm, man, because little do we know when we use the term spiritual, we are actually separating the wholeness or the singularity idea. We haven't given it no serious thought. And I just had a conversation with a brother today. We walked through this and I made him, on up to, because he kept talking about these spiritual realms. And okay, well, what is spiritual then? How do that relates to that which the spirit is supposed to be what? Responsible for bringing into existence. So I'm just
That's right.
wanting to make sure that we all on the same page. We got to look at this energy and terminology that we are using because it is very subtle. The objective is to keep us at odds within self and at odds with one another. And naturally, you're being in odds with that universal cosmetic, energy that is so vital and critical to us at this juncture in time. So I want to use that. I've been laying out this prophetic framework, but I want to introduce to us again a concept called the power to define. And this power to define has been what Abba Ben Ami has stated, that the power to define in the hands of evil men is a weapon of oppression and satanic control. Now, and that's very, very critical, you know. So I wanted to give you the title of what we're going to talk about in respect to our predicament. Now, we're going to call this the power to define that will change our predicament. This is what the title is. We're going to talk about how the power to define will change our predicament. And of course, I know everybody on this line and Eitai have been constantly telling us about the predicament and how it's going to change, how it's going to change. So we on the same page. I just want us to be clear about this. But I want to introduce it first by talking about, this power versus force. Power versus force. And then we're going to show how power can be used that will actually change our predicament. But we're not going to change our predicament without power. Each other made it crystal clear to us that riches that all the, aberrant people on the planet, they didn't get it through hard work and being honest and all of that. It ain't how it happened. So what we're going to do, we're going to have everybody to, if they have the book Power versus Force, we want to go there first to deal with the power to define that will change our predicament. Now, in the book I have is on 133, page 133. Now, in page 133 is in the chapter called Power versus Force. No, I'm sorry, the source of power.
The source of power.
It's in the chapter called the source of power. The source of power. And I'm going to start at the top of the paragraph.
It's under the heading, Nasi, Power versus Force.
Right, it's under that heading, but it's in the chapter source of power, right?
Yes, yes. That's
absolutely
correct. That's correct.
Now I'm going to read just a small portion here, and then we're going to go to the main portion to bring it out. Power versus force. It says, on examination, we will see that power arises from meaning. Power arises from meaning. It has to do with motive, and it has to do with principle. Meaning the motive and the principle. Power is always associated with that which supports the significance of life itself. So now, power in the hands of evil men is a weapon of oppression and satanic control method. That means they really don't have power, but the term that is used is power. They're using force. They're using force to what? Oppose life. They're using force to oppose life. We go on. It said, it appeals to the part of the human nature that we call noble. This is power now. In contrast to force, which appeals to that which we call crass. Power appeals to what uplifts, dignifies, and ennobles. Force must always be justified, whereas power requires no justification. Force is associated with the partial power with the whole. Now let's think about duality. Let's think about division. Let's think about separation. You start to think about these things, we're not saying that you don't have no power, but you do not have power, that was bequeathed to you when you are whole or when you're in singularity. That's another kind of power.
That's right.
Okay? Now, for those that have the book to read along, we're going to go to page 133. 133, and that's at the next page, at the bottom paragraph, on the next page at the bottom paragraph. And it starts with this. Every civilization is characterized by native principles. And we just said power was associated with motive and principle. Motive and principle. And I said every civilization is characterized by native principles. If the principles of a civilization are noble, it succeeds. If they are selfish, it fails. A term, principles, as a term, principles, may sound abstract, but the consequences of principles are quite concrete. If we examine principles, we'll see that they reside in an invisible realm within consciousness itself. Now, this is our key here.
Yes.
See, these different realms of consciousness, and consciousness is always associated with knowledge. Knowledge determines consciousness. Consciousness determines knowledge. They are unified as one. But you got to always understand consciousness and knowledge brings about a thought process. So a man thinketh, so is he. So his whole thought process directly tied to what? His knowledge and his consciousness. Keep this in mind now, because this is going to give us a real key. Although we can point out examples of honesty in the world, honesty itself is an organizing principle central to civilization. Wait a minute. Let me read that again. Honesty is an organizing principle central to civilization, does not independently exist anywhere in the external world. This is the key point. Organizing principle of civilization does not independently, separately exist anywhere in the external world. True power then emanates from consciousness itself. What we see is a visible manifestation of the invisible. So what we're saying here, that true power emanates from consciousness. And where does consciousness, you understand, has its relationship to? It has its relationship to what I always have said, it's a part of, an integral part of the, creation process.
Yes.
Now, it is responsible for bringing into existence from its integral relationship to melanin or to dark matter or dark energy. It's directly connected.
Yes.
And this is a very significant point here. Why is this a significant point? I was reading in Genesis 2 and 7 when this came to me. 2 and 7 and 2 and 22. 2 and 7 stated that man was created by the breath of life being breathed into him. But then when you went to verse 22, it says, Eve was the mother of all living. So the question has to be, where did Eve get this what? Energy to cause her to be the mother of all living? Well, it didn't say she was created. Did y'all hear what I said?
Yes.
Came.
Was the mother of all living. Where did she get hers from? It didn't say she was created. Adam was created. And the breath of life was breathed into him. But she was what? Now, we're going to tie this into what we've been wrestling about the simulated reality. This is where we're going with this. So we can be clear as to how all of this happened. And once we put this in perspective, we're going to see. So we're going to take our time, and we're going to go now to scriptural reference, Genesis 2, 18 and 19. Now I'm going to purposely leave out verse 21, but we will tie verse 21 of the second chapter in. That verse 21 of the second chapter has to do with the deep sleep. Okay? We're going to make all this make sense now. And it reads, Genesis 2, 18. And the Lord said, it is not good that man should be alone. Key word. Key word. I will make him a helpmeet for him. And out of the ground, the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air, and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. And so whatsoever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. We are talking about the simulated reality here.
That's absolutely correct.
Come on, I say.
Talking about the simulated. Now, watch what we're going to do here. We said, when we read from the narrative, that says it is not good that man should not be alone, we must come to understand that this is not speaking one way or the other, meaning right or wrong, meaning what? Him by himself without a mate. Him, you understand? That's not what it's talking about. In order to clearly comprehend this, we will have to look within and not to and from our programming. If you look to the simulated programming, you will never get this.
Not ever.
Whenever we do, we will never find the true answer. Thus, the true answer will always come from within oneself and its relationship to the unified, orderly, harmonious, systematic cosmos / universe. Did you hear what I just said?
I heard you.
Yes.
The
Yes.
true answer
Loud
will
and clear.
always come from within oneself and its relationship to the unified, orderly, harmonious, systematic cosmos universe. That's the only way you're going to get the true answer.
That's right.
It can't come from, no, if it come from any other place, it would come from the simulated reality of your programming.
That's
Okay.
right.
Is that clear now?
That's
Absolutely.
We will demonstrate this idea when we speak of the phrase within the biblical narrative, it is not good for man to be alone. From the Hebraic meaning, the word alone is 905. It means bod, abad, from 909, in the sense of separation. Listen now, by implying a part of the body. Now let's go back to 2 and 21. When you go back to 2, what happened in the deep sleep when the rib was taken?
Yes. Come on. Come on.
That's the part of the body that was taken. But all of this has to do with the simulated reality now. This is the allegory here. As we continue on, 909 means to bada, which is the primitive root. It means to divide, i.e., or that is to be solitary, alone. Now let's go to the English. From the English, form of the word, the noun, 15th century, one who lives or seeks to live a solitary life. Recluse. Okay, number 2, solitary confinement in prison. Now, we do not believe that we are in solitary confinement in prison, but you are living in a simulated reality that is a solitary confinement of prison of your consciousness.
That's right.
I see.
Separated from yourself.
Is solitary confinement in the simulated reality. You must define everything based up on the simulated reality. Other than that, it will not be accepted and you will not be accepted.
Okay.
Is that clear now?
That's
Yes.
very clear.
Yes. Come on, Nasik.
So we can understand. Recluse, an adjective, 13th century, marked by withdrawal from society. Recluse, noun, 13th century, a person who leads a secluded or solitary life. Now, what did the community here do? The community here did exactly what we're reading about. It moved away into a secluded place. And we cut ourselves off from everybody else, right? Now follow this here. This is to say that all things in the simulated reality are defined to reflect what is in harmony with the perception and the law of this earthly plane.
That's correct. That's clear, Nasi.
Mm-hmm.
So we've explained 2:18 through 19. So now, when you start to talk about this on the next level, we says, we as the masculine and feminine elements of dark neuron melanin, dark energy, and dark matter must always remain cognizant of our objective at all times and the means we must use to achieve it. In energetic warfare, we must outthink their thinkers, but we can't outthink them if we what? Possessing what they call a mind.
That's right.
Right.
Because the mind gonna cause you to what? Define everything within the simulated reality.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So how you gonna thank him? You thinking on behalf of him and keeping you in the predicament, in confinement.
Yes.
Are you with me now?
I'm with you, Nasi.
Okay, Nasi. Absolutely.
We must be wiser than the aberrant man. We thus remind ourselves of the two forces vying for the energy, thought power of our unity and wholeness. This is what this it's all about. What? Keeping you in division and keeping you separated within. If you are separated within, you're gonna pick and choose certain individuals within, you understand, the simulated reality that agree with you. And when they don't agree with you, you what? End up what? Breaking up with them, you know what I'm saying? You fall out with them. You end up doing something physically to them
Right.
if necessary.
Right.
Yes.
How many friendships and relationships and families been destroyed because of exactly what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Continuing on. That when sufficiently understood applies of the existence of two sources of energy. As energy is the key to all existence and life on the planet, these two opponents are struggling for its control. Since energy is essential to the achievement of any objective, in energetic warfare, energy is not destroyed. Now, let me just share with y'all what I did.
Could you repeat that, Nasi? Because we had some sound interference. You said some very important things there, and I want to make sure we get it recorded. All right?
Gotcha. That when sufficiently understood apprises us to the existence of two sources of energy. As energy is the key to all existence and life on the planet, these two opponents are struggling for its control. Since energy is essential to the achievement of any objective, in energetic warfare, energy is not destroyed. Now, I want to show you what I did. I went back into the writings of the father, and I understood what he was projecting, but I had to update the language so it would fit within what we must understand in the cycle of time and the warfare that we are engaged in. We're not engaged in spiritual warfare, okay?
Okay.
We're engaged in energetic warfare.
That's correct.
See, one of the things that he states in it, he says, the scientific social internet created inverted energy, and then he goes on to say, this energy gives the appearances weaken at the same time, you understand? Strengthen and weaken at the same time. Well, what is that? If you strengthen and weaken at the same time, then you really don't have no strength. How do you be strengthened at one time and then at the same time you weaken?
You standing still. You know.
You see what I'm saying? So I'm saying that we had to put this language, you know, in the proper perspective so that it could be clearly understood. Now let us continue on. Let us consider this from a mathematical perspective. As the aberrant man develops a formula to weaken and yet at the same time energize. In math, it is called a reciprocal or inverse proportion. Any proportion which contains a reciprocal ratio. Well, now, this is where the problem, inverse. This inversion process, why do you think the biblical writings of the King James is called the King James Version? The King James Version was King James inverting your energy.
Come on, I
The
say.
King James Version was the inversion of our energy, turning our energy of warfare to a contrary direction where guaranteed you were going to lose.
That's right.
We got to understand language, you know, and it has always been critical. Language has been fashioning and creating our predicament ever since. This is what we got to understand about language, how it separates, you understand, nature from, you know, action. So you got one nature, you then your action be different, you know, and this is the objective, keep you divided. Continuing on, it says, we call it subvertive intelligence. Now listen, subvert your intelligence, subvert. Verb transit 14th century, to overturn or overthrow from the foundation. What has been our foundation? What has been overthrown, you know, in our foundation? The foundation that has been overthrown is our what? Unified relationship as the emanation from the organic reality. That's what's been overthrown.
That's correct.
Going on. It says, to pervert or corrupt by undermining unity and allegiance of wholeness, oneness, and singularity.
Right.
So if you undermine unity, allegiance, and wholeness, and oneness, and singularity, if you pervert that, you have automatically lost contact with what? The whole of everything. You're working in opposition to it. The universe is a unified, you understand, you know, harmonious, systematic stuff. So now if you go against that, do you expect the universe to be on your side?
Right.
Right.
The adversary, and I say adversary, I'm saying division. You know, I'm not talking about a person. The adversary / division of dualism by, because this is the enemy now, by the application of scientific social engineering creates inverted energy. This is energy turned to a contrary direction, changed from what was formerly the normal order. Now, this normal order here, this is where, you know, things begin to become a little unclear for most of us, because we don't know what the normal order was.
Very much understood, Nasi.
Very. So without knowing what the normal order was, then someone can reverse or invert the order, and when that takes place, you perceive that's the right order. And I'm gonna give it to you up front. When you what? Put the masculine hierarchical personality as the primary, you have inverted the order.
That's correct.
Come on, Nasi. Yes, sir.
You have inverted the order, and everybody is trapped by that on this in this simulated reality.
Yes.
We go now to Genesis 2, 22 through 24. And it reads, and the rib which the Lord God had taken from man, made he a woman, and brought her unto the man. And Adam said, this is now bone of my bones, and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Now we just look at the the vernacular here in English. We see man and we see what? W-O, then dash M-A-N. So we're saying woman and man is what? It's the same thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Adam said, this is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. So now we're going to give our insight into this, how this was revealed. We said the rib that was taken from man and made a woman and brought her unto man. Adam said, or his response was, this is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. The masculine element that still exists within Adam was being remerged or reconnected with the feminine aspect.
Absolutely,
Absolutely.
Nasi.
Now see.
Yes.
The
Yes.
feminine aspect of himself
Mm-hmm.
had been separated to make the woman that had now become bone of his bone and flesh of his flesh. This is the representation of exactly what takes place in the simulated reality, with the appearance of two external species marrying one another.
Mm-hmm.
So you figure that, oh, you're fallen in love with somebody, you're risen in love with somebody. And now you're going to find a way to make yourself whole by going and get an external species, and then bring them back and what? Have what you call a wedding.
Wow.
Is that
Come
what
on.
takes place in the simulated
Yes.
reality?
That's
Yes.
correct.
Mm-hmm.
Bear with me here. This is what we now call husband and wife. This gives the appearance of two being one flesh. And that's how it's written now.
Mm-hmm.
But the question you have to ask yourself, whether he was already one whole and a part was taken from his body to make one, we got to know that has to do with this alchemical process of the 2 and 21, the real being taken.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I know this is a little bit beyond what we've been taught, and I'm not talking about the portion that I'm bringing now. I'm just simply saying this idea, this concept here,
Yes.
has not been something that we've been taught in our religious experience. You know, we just read through this here and thought, oh, this was the miracle, you know, that God can do anything, you know. That's how we looked at that, you know.
Right.
Ain't nothing impossible for God, you know. But anyway, continuing on. The one thing we must always remember whenever trying to understand the biblical narrative, and that is none other than a representation of the similitude on the simulated reality. So if you're trying to understand this scripture, the biblical writing, you know, any other way or from any other perspective other than the simulated reality, you're going to run into conflict. The Genesis allegory is defining for everyone through symbols of fiction of figures, actions of truth, or generalizations about human existence. The Genesis allegory, is defining for everyone through symbols of fictional figures, actions of truth, or generalizations about human existence. The scientific social engineering construction of the simulated reality was to cause everyone to have the same conception about the allegorical simulated reality as being really simulated reality as being as above, so below. So now we state this, but we cannot state this in respect to the simulated reality. It gives, you understand, the appearance that as above, so below.
Now see,
And
Okay.
could I gotta make a point here. I
go
gotta
ahead.
make a point here. Family, this is so profound. If we can only get this, we are this thing is at such a high level now. I just want to show you, Nasi, what it is that you were talking about, or just show the family so that they can get an idea. You said that the idea was to divert us from the organic order,
Right, right.
and or what we feel is the natural order, and we
Mm-hmm.
think that what is natural is organic.
Right.
But family, that is just what we're used to. And
Right.
Asik is
Okay.
talking about this separation that took place in the book of Enoch. Nasi, first Enoch 60, 7 and 8. It talks about not just two divisions in nature, it talks about three divisions in nature that
Uh-huh.
we think, Nasi, is natural, but the proof is it's based on the formula or the program of the simulated reality. I'll tell you
Uh-huh.
what I'm talking about. It states here that Leviathan, the sea monster, with Behemoth, the land monster, and Ziz, the air monster. And on that day, this is the book of Enoch, were two monsters parted. This is the rib coming out of Adam.
Uh-huh.
All right. A
Mm-hmm.
female monster named Leviathan to dwell in the abysses of the ocean over the and rule over the fountains of waters. But the male was named Behemoth, who occupied the breast with his breast a waste wilderness named Dudan. And Leviathan is the king of fishes, and Ziz is appointed to rule over the birds. So I got three representations of a herd of land animals, a shoal of fishes, and a flock of birds.
Right.
We think this is natural,
Yeah.
but it's all the same thing, but it's keeping birds separate, fishes separate, and land animals separate based on a program, an energetic
Wow.
program that is part of the simulated reality. Now, real quick,
Wow.
and I'll let you get back. When we enter into wholeness, family, it won't be this separation. The
Talk
wolf,
to me.
the wolf is going to dwell with what? The lamb.
That's what it
Mm-hmm.
said, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
This is the organic reality.
Right.
Right.
Come on, Stokes.
We thought that this was the organic reality. Was that
Right.
this is nature, but it's simulated. This is what Nasik is talking about. This
Talk to
is
me.
so
That's what.
profound that if we can conceptualize this And we first must acknowledge this and accept it because it is provable. We think that this is nature, that this is natural. But the scriptures tell us it's unnatural. It's exactly what Nasik is telling us, that the true organic reality is wholeness. The wolf shouldn't be separated from the lamb. The leopard shouldn't be separated from the kid. The calf shouldn't be separated from the young lion and the fatling. And it says, and a little child shall lead them. Y'all, this, what we're doing, what Nasik is saying is uncommon. We heading into the cosmos, y'all.
Okay.
That's where we headed, Eitai.
We headed outside of this this simulated reality into an understanding and a manifestation of the organic reality. Why should the fear of man be on all the beasts?
Right. There you go. There you go.
Come on now. Come on. Go ahead now, see. I had to say that.
No, that's right on time. That's right in line with it helps to expand this idea. See, because if we don't get this, we will be thinking what the next point I'm going to say. This is to say that wherever takes place on earth is bound in heaven, is bound on earth. Now we quoted that.
Right.
But again, we didn't understand when that initially quoted that the separation was as full as what Eitai just laid out. We didn't know that. So now that we see, how this simulated reality actually functioned, you see the objective was and to maintain everybody's perception within the simulated reality. And as long as you're in that reality, there's no ascension for you.
That's correct.
Yes.
There's no ascension for you. And there's nothing but Eitai been telling us about what? You eat, you sleep, and you alleviate yourself, and you work. You sleep, and that's all you're going to do eternally until you what? Go back to the earth again.
There's nothing, there's no difference between you and the beast of the field, the beast of the water, or the beast of the air.
Eitai, what it just said, let's go back now. Just verify what he said. He says, and Adam said, this is now bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man. Wait a minute. This was no, that's the wrong one. Let me go back to the other verse.
You're there.
2:18.
Right.
It says, and out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air.
That's
and
right.
Brought them Adam to see what he would call them, and whatsoever he called them, every living creature, that was the name now. So you can see that this whole thing of what he called naming was the separation of things in the simulated reality.
That's the program right there. That's the program right there, family.
So that we can understand this.
Excellent.
So we own it. The ancestors done waking us out of the deep sleep.
That's right.
Continuing on. We must understand that whatever takes place on earth is merely a transition from the simulated reality back to the cosmic reality. The scientific, social engineering construction creates a simulated reality that is the European average man patriarchal, hierarchical social system of government.
That's right.
Yes.
It ain't got nothing to do with how we govern ourselves prior to emanation into this simulated reality. But we done picked up the principles, that we've become a part of as this simulated reality. Continuing on. The neuromelanin carbonated species original transition original transition was from an organic emanation away from the normal order that was turned to a contrary direction, which is the simulated reality of the Earth's plane. And so we give the definition of emanation. Noun 1570. 1A, the action of emanating. B, the origination of the world by a series of hierarchical descending relations.
That's right.
From the Godhead through intermediate stages to matter. So we came into this physical plane and the matter that, we now see as reality, we emanated into this here. 2A, something that emanates or is produced by emanation. Effluence, something that flows out. B, a heavy gaseous element produced by radioactive disintegration. So we got to understand who we are as melanin carbonated species, where we come from, who we are, lest we fall victim to we was created within the simulated reality, thinking this is their ultimate by what? Pleasing, a quote unquote universal force that we call Yah, God, or the Supreme. And that, we are in opposition to him because we've sinned.
Right. Right.
And that keeps you in this moralistic way of doing things. You always try to be the best you can be, believe that, something gonna come to you and help you for being a good person. You're gonna be taken to heaven. Man, I'm telling you. Continuing on. Whenever we reverse our direction away from the country,
1 second before you go on, you had just mentioned emanation.
Right.
And we know that the emanation, it skipped one process.
There you go, right.
So what do we see here and what is represented in the scriptures? Air, the birds, water, the fish, and land, but there's one element that's missing.
Right.
And that's the beast of the fire. The
right.
of the fire. Yep. That's us.
Right.
That's us.
Right. Yes.
Right. The fire is missing. Right.
The fire is missing. That is us.
So we could say then this is what they call the 3 dimensions, huh?
That's correct. Now,
yes.
Reality.
Yes.
Wow.
Go ahead, Nasig. This is brilliant.
Whenever we reverse our directions away from the contrary direction, which is the simulated reality, back into our cosmic reality, which is our consciousness that we are an integral part of all that is.
There it is.
An integral part of all that is.
Yes.
Then and then only can we manifest the greater power, which is the organic cosmic energy of the orderly, harmonious, systematic cosmos universe. Whenever we think of any form of warfare, it has to always be that we must outthink their thinkers and be wiser than the European average species. We must remind ourselves of the lesser force and the greater power, vying for control and dominance over life, and death. This whole thing about life and death has always been a mystery for us, because in the programming, in the simulated reality, certainly you was made to believe that you had to die, because, and it was more like sin was connected to death, so to speak. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
That's right.
If you were a sinful individual, then some way you was going to die. But because if you believed in, quote unquote, another force outside of yourself prior to leaving there in the physical, then you could be resurrected again. So you see, all of these doctrinal concepts and ideas brought us into this religious belief about things. And it's hard to fathom getting out of, this predicament. We just cannot see how it's possible that all of this, you understand, has come upon us, without us being these evil people. Continuing on. While the lesser force is the simulated reality, it has been made to appear genuine instead of fake. I say it again. While the lesser force is the simulated reality, it has been made to appear genuine instead of fake.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Simulate. Etymology 1652. Latin, simulates, past participle of simulare, to copy, to represent. Finge, to assert as if true. Finge means to assert as if true. From similis, like. Simulate, to assume the outward qualities or appearance of, often with the intent to deceive. And it goes on to say, see synonym reason. 13th century, a statement offered in explanation or justification. B, a rational ground or motive. So now let's go back to, remember what it says, that power had to do with what? Meaning, motive, and principle, right? So this simulated reality gives you, you understand, based upon the programming, a motive, you understand, that is a fake, that is not a reality.
Right.
And now under the fake principle, you find yourself trying to live a life of what you call holiness, a life of righteousness. And the life of holiness or the life of righteousness, all that you know that have lived that so-called holy and righteous life, they transition out of the flesh into the ground just like the wicked did. Is that true or not?
Absolutely true.
True. Yes.
So we got to understand the difference between the fake, and that which is real. Going on, it says, fake, 1827, a worthless imitation posed off as genuine. Now, how did we fall victim? Except this was a part of a forethought by our ancestors to put this into this perfect framework and reality that we have experienced this day, to see how perfect it has been laid out in respect to how someone else whom we are responsible for creating. It's almost like Frankenstein and the monster. Always, we know, when the individual created the monster, what happened at the end? The monster turned around and what? consumed him, destroyed him.
Right.
Just like
Mhm.
Frankenstein.
So we got to understand the difference between the fake, the deception, you know, and the true reality.
Now
So,
see,
yes, sir.
so Eitai had brought um, about the three elements, and that we are the fire, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So is it safe to say that the narrative of Moses, who went up to the mountain and he saw the burning bush, and then he
That was you.
asked
That was you.
exactly, and then he asked himself, well, what is this name? And he says, I am that I am.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Bingo.
Right.
That's us.
The
Right.
burning bush, you know, it could not be consumed, you
Right.
know. And that's this people, this carbonated, melanated people that they have tried everything to physically, spiritually, economically, socially, and
Mm-hmm.
all other, you know,
Mm-hmm.
ways of eradicating us forever and forever and even forever.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't been
Okay.
able to do it.
And
Haven't
now
been able
see, this is why it was water before,
to
fire
fight
behind.
it.
The destruction of the wicked is our gaining our full power and manifesting that within the simulated reality. All of the elements are of the simulated reality are going to what? Melt away.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be a new heaven and new earth
Mm-hmm.
Maya.
based on the organic reality. This is so
Yeah, I
clear.
Yes.
got some
Yes.
treatments on my knees tonight. I got to go and take care. So you have to everyone has to excuse me tonight. Okay, hold on. Yeah, so we on time with what we are laying out. I'm gonna hold this portion here, but I just want to say again that you know it is incumbent upon us to understand these points that we brought out today because it's going to set us into the cycle where now we will clearly understand is how we define things that is in relationship to the the unified harmonious systematic universe. Everything have to be in harmony with that because they made sure that they defined things that was in complete harmony with the simulated reality. And anything outside of that, it was always rejected as being faulty. So we must understand that in our power to define, this is where we will be able to be victorious. But if we don't use this power, then we'll end up trying to figure out why we are not succeeding. And the reason we won't be succeeding is because we're not utilizing our power.
Mm-hmm.
Just that simple.
Just as
So I
simple.
want to close that point on and want to thank the family for allowing us to have this opportunity to present. Okay?